Hello there, Pursuing Freedom friends. Thanks as always for being back today. And if it's your first time here, welcome aboard. Got a great show for you today. I have my friend Mandy McAllister here, who is just an absolute bright light and rock star in my world and became a fast friend upon first meeting several years ago. And I'm sure you're going to understand why once you hear from Mandy today. Mandy, what I love about her is that when we first met, she was on the brink of leaving her W-2 because she was able to replace her income through commercial real estate investing. And she'll share her own story here. But I have learned so much from her regarding strategy around the true path to financial independence, risk taking and responsibility, the willingness to leap in spite of fear, mindset, ninja, you name it. And she's also become the CEO of an incredible women's organization called GoBundance, of which I'm a member. And she's leading the brigade there with this incredible community of high vibe, driven, heart-centered women who want to live healthy, wealthy, abundant, give back, etc. And I guess with no further ado, I'll just let Mandy tell her own story here. But thank you, Mandy, for being here. Thank you for being an inspiration to me and to countless others. Thank you for your leadership and your friendship. And please go ahead and just kind of give us the backstory. Start from the beginning and share how you got to where you are today and the life that you're living and how you're impacting others with your journey.
I am so lucky I get to be your friend, Erin Bradley. Thank you for having me and for your bright light that you shed to everyone around you. I'm a farm kid. I'm a completely ordinary, seriously, town of 800 people, no stoplights person, right? And I had this idea of, oh wait, it was audacious that if I want to play Division I volleyball, well, those teams need players at this super young age, 15, 16. I'm going to figure out how to get on one of those teams, right? And that was kind of the first time I realized that, wait, you can reverse engineer big things that are beyond what is possible in whatever you see. So after I finished undergrad, I did a master's in economics. My dad is a farmer plus master's in economics equals board of trade. So I worked on the floor of the Chicago Board of Trade for a lot of years and saw that going away because even though I can add numbers quickly in my head, computers are a lot faster and they make fewer errors. So I transitioned into medical device sales, which I kind of followed the money, right? So board of trade was a great way to make a lot of money. Medical device sales was also a great way to make a lot of money. I loved science. I loved people. So that was the route. I spent about 16 years in med device sales, and near the end was just about coincided with when my son was born. I realized that, oh, wait, the whole reason I didn't go to medical school is because I didn't want to be on call. And now I've ascended this ladder of medical device sales, and I have become like I am now on call for med device sales. I am the thing I chose to avoid because of what level of success I found. I have become a slave to my own damn success, right? So I, at that point in time, doubled my efforts and really asked myself some hard questions on what do I want out of life. I say what my priorities are, my family and impact to the world. But what you put on your calendar and how you spend your money is a better reflector of what your values are than what you say your values are. So I changed my calendar to reflect the things that were absolutely important to me.
Okay, so you just touched upon a couple huge things. And when I resumed this podcast, I came back after a year and a half hiatus with some real intentionality about what I want to help the listeners achieve in their own experience, because I always say that the goal is to build a life you don't need a vacation from. And when you say a slave to my success, slave to your own success, I can completely resonate with that. And part of the journey was struggling to get myself off the ground and having limiting beliefs around my ability to create consistent income. But once I had that, it was struggling to create a better life for myself because I was surviving my own success. So when you talk about being on call, I know the audience can relate. And, previously the podcast was heavily focused on how do we create consistent growth in our business? And ultimately, how do we not be a slave to our own success? But I wanted to take it one step further and say, then what? You talked about, what do I really want out of my life? So many of our listeners are here wondering what's next for me and feeling like, we have to be grateful for the success we've created for ourselves, even when it admittedly can rob us of our joy. And many people will get to a level of success, and by that I mean money, and they're feeling unfulfilled or out of alignment, or they've lost their mojo, they've lost their spark, and they can't figure out why, because they've achieved what they set out to achieve. So what does it look like when you reach this crossroads where you had to be really honest with yourself? Everything was looking good from the outside looking in, I'm sure.
I had the right house, I had the right car, I had the right career, I had the perfect family, and like my marriage crumbled at that time too. I'm a divorced person, so really getting honest with what matters to me, and can I achieve those things in my life, those feelings, because a lot of it is, especially speaking, especially to the successful women out there, to show up with this like hard charging masculine energy is what gets you here, but it's not what's going to get you there, right? The connected relationships, the leaning into the surrender experiment, this beautiful book that you brought into my life, Erin, by Mickey Singer. How do I focus more on how things feel and being rather than doing? And it's the most backwards thing, that until you lean into being, abundance comes your way. And it feels woo-woo to say out loud, and you don't believe it, because what got you here is hard charging, nose to the grindstone, adrenal burnout, right? But what's going to get you there, the life by design, relaxed, like full fulfillment, isn't the right car, isn't the right house. It's leaning into how things feel. So I will say that I had this kind of longer term goal of leaving my W-2. And I one big thing that helped me get there is you can't hit a target you can't see. So I made a little calculator that helped me decide and figure out exactly what I needed to be able to hit that goal. Because I always say that you can't, if you have a problem, you got to put more truth to the problem. And if it's a money problem, it's just a math problem, right? So it's a freebie on my website, mandymcallister.com. You can, any listener can go and download that and see what target they need to hit. But after I hit that, like I got to that, past the finish line of leaving my W-2, and I looked around, I'm like, oh, okay, now what? That exactly what you said. And a book that helped me a lot figure out, really crystallize what the next target to hit is. It's called Vivid Vision. Just how do I decide the things that really fire me up, the things that really feel impactful? And for me, it always ends up being the people. And, how can I leave everybody's life a little bit better than it was before I came into it? So ideas around that is what helped me.
So first of all, I love how you say a money problem is just a math problem, because we always talk about knowing the numbers, and also not being so hard on yourself when the numbers, which don't lie, are not what you want in reality, because your current reality is simply a byproduct of the younger version of you. And what got you to where you are isn't necessarily going to get you where you're trying to go, but you can go anywhere. So help us understand the emotional impact of leaping, because many people are at that threshold. They're at a crossroads. They can't figure out why they're not quite feeling right, even though for all intents and purposes, everything looks great. And they have this intuition, this impulse in their heart that maybe they're meant for more or something different. And the brain is so loud, the chatter of all the reasons why we can't, or we shouldn't, or how I could never, or I wish I could, but. So what's the work that you can do there to get into the heart and out of the head and be willing to act in spite of the absolutely terrifying fear?
I love this topic, and I don't think it gets talked about enough, because many podcasts, Erin, I used to be poor, but now I'm rich. This is the real messy middle. I'm making the decisions as I go type stuff. So this, I applaud you. For me, when I was ready to take the leap, I was a single mom, and I was moving from fourplex, sixplex type small multis into the 50-ish $4 million purchase stuff. So that is a huge leap, to go from a $400,000 property to then add a zero, right? So a couple of mindset hacks, the mindset ninja things, is moving from a fourplex to a 53 unit. I started to think through, how do I outsmart myself? How do I get my own brain behind this in a way that everything will feel okay, and I'll realize I'm not going to die, right? So when I went into the 53 unit, I was reading a lot, like the Ryan Holiday books, a lot of Stoic philosophy type stuff. And this idea of what is the actual worst case scenario? Not if you're going to be a landlord, will a toilet break? Will we, have a problem collecting rent 1 month? Will we have to, yes, you will have all those problems. You're entering into business. You are choosing to deal with problems. However, what is the actual worst case scenario? Well, we don't have enough people paying rent. We can't pay the mortgage. That becomes a math problem again. I can figure out the economic vacancy. How many people can I have not paying their rent before I can not afford to pay my loan? And I realized 43% could be economically vacant. 43% of the units could be not paying, and I would still be able to make my mortgage, right? I thought that was so reasonable, and that would not be a thing that would happen to us. It felt really easy to jump into it because I had given myself I had quantified the fear of the actual worst case scenario. One more thing that really helped me in terms of a little mindset hack was when I was leaving my W-2, again, single mom, homeless, penniless, under a bridge. Oh my God, what am I going to do for my son? Right. The idea of leaving, I was doing, I don't know, $250,000, $300,000 a year in medical device sales at the time, which is a tremendous living. It's a great living. And to choose to leave that was crazy to most people in my life. Why would you ever do that? You're crazy, Mandy. Don't, right? But I chose to, I built up such a good vibe in all of the people I knew in sales that I knew I could make 3 phone calls and get a sales job within, a couple of weeks if I wanted another sales job, right? I knew that to be a fact. That was certainty for me. So if I could just decide that this is not a permanent thing, retiring from my W-2 is not a permanent status. I'm just treating it like an experiment. All I'm going to do is see how this goes for 12 months time. And if it doesn't feel right after 12 months of giving it my all, then I go find another W-2. It doesn't have to be forever. I feel like taking a lot of that pressure off, removing the permanence, really helped me leave my W-2.
I love that. I could not agree more. It's interesting when my husband and I and the kids decided, well, my husband and I decided, let's be real, when we decided to move to a ski town and I was running my business in Denver, I had a million reasons why I can't and I shouldn't. And that's insane. And it's not responsible because this is where my business is. And I remember sitting down over dinner one night and saying, what are all the worst case scenarios? And going through each of them, everything was reversible. Like, oh, well, what if my business, okay, well, if my business starts to fail because we move away, I can always move back. What about our community, our friends, the kid? We can always move back. We can always come back. In other words, you only have one way to go but up, really, because if it doesn't work out, you come back to where you are right now, which is fine. But if it's not freaking awesome, then don't settle for just fine. Take a chance.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and my favorite way to get advice is I look to Mandy 20 years down the road. I call this hindsight foresight. I'm certain I'm not the one who made this up, but this is my favorite way because I have perfect context of my problems. I have perfect context of what matters to me, right? So I'm 43 right now. I think about Mandy at 63. All right, this thing that feels impossible and I have all these reasons not to. Mandy at 63, hey girl, if I were to do this and fail, are you more upset that I did it and failed or that I didn't try at all? And she, 20 years down the road, is always more angry with me if I don't try, So the hindsight foresight is an easy way to get a real life decision of your future self.
I love that. I always say 5 years from now, what will I wish I had done? And one of my favorite quotes is the sooner you step away from your comfort zone, the sooner you realize it wasn't all that comfortable. And it's so important for anyone listening. It doesn't matter if you're trying to grow your business and you're terrified of being seen as salesy and you're afraid to pick up the phone. It doesn't matter if you're running on fumes, burning out, thinking of hiring someone and afraid it's going to fail. It doesn't matter if you're considering a major leap in your life. At the end of the day, deep down inside you're meant for more and there's something not quite aligned right now and you're hearing it and you're thinking, here's why I can't, why I shouldn't. And the reality is if you're uncomfortable, then when you take that chance, typically, which turns out to be a great decision, you look back 5 years from now and you're in this incredible new life that you've transformed because you were willing to try, you look back to this current version of yourself and realize it wasn't all that comfortable to play small. It's not comfortable to play small.
What I'll say too is when you are next to people who love you, who are nervous because they don't see a different version of life to, hey, Mandy, don't leave a $250,000, $300,000 a year job because that would be suicide. You're a single mom. Please try to be reasonable. Try to be responsible. They were doing that out of love, pulling me to what they knew. Because I had a group of friends like Erin, I was able to see the other side of things. I was able to see examples of people who flourished beyond their wildest dreams because they did take that leap. So if you are in a spot that you feel contained and you're meant for more, make some new friends, because the new friends who think differently might be the catalyst that you need to take that jump that will be life-changing.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up because I posted something on Facebook just last night about GoBundance, which is where we met. And when we met, we were both members, and you've since become the CEO of the organization. And we were talking about this when we were at the last retreat in Sedona, that on the heels of every single retreat, hanging around people that remind me more of my future than my past, ridiculous transformation has occurred. And the type of transformation that before I went into this experience with all of you, I couldn't have even conjured up, because, we talk about limiting beliefs and fear and worry and doubt and all the things, right? And being willing to take big chances, take big leaps. We can never believe what we're truly capable of because our belief is limited by the reality we've lived to date. And we know this because if you go back to your 20-year-old self, you've already proven yourself wrong. You've already exceeded your own expectations in some area of your life. I guarantee everyone listening could go back to their 20-year-old self and be surprised by what you've accomplished, either in your health, in your relationships, personal, professional, you name it. So you go into a room of people that remind you more of your future. You don't know before you walk into that room what's going to awaken within you, the inspiration. And I just would love for you to share your experience as it relates to community, masterminding, spending time with people that represent your future, and how it's affected you and your willingness to evolve.
This reminds me of that Marianne Williamson quote, if you've heard it. It's our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure, that you playing small does not serve the world. So how dare you not lean into your greatness? Like, it is a choice that is bad for the world if you choose not to lean into your greatness. I'll say personally, like, I love where I grew up. I love how I grew up. Like, literally my closest neighbor was a mile away, and it was my grandma. But I didn't see a lot of the world, and many of the people that I grew up alongside live exactly where they lived. And I don't know if they, because of fear, chose to not take a step into something outside of the comfort zone that they knew. But it's because I saw people doing things bigger than me that caused me to want to do bigger things. And I'll say too, and in talking to some of our fellow GoBundance women members who are like at the most elite stages of capitalism, like where capitalism begins, that's where they're playing, right? And time again, the realization, the most shocking thing to me and to these women playing at these bigger levels than me, is that we are all just people. That Erin Bradley is an incredible human. Do not get me wrong, but she is a human, And I got called courageous yesterday, and that didn't feel right. Like, that didn't feel like it suited me, because I don't think of myself as courageous. I think of myself as curious, and leaning into stuff that interests me is way more interesting than, brazenly going into stuff. And I'm only curious about stuff. I get to ask these curious questions of people doing different stuff because I'm next to them, because I am their peer. I am not just someone in the audience listening to the hammer teach me how to be a nail. I'm playing in the arena with people doing big things. That has meant all the world to me.
So I love that you talk about this human component, because I often say that there's no one that you admire who's achieved something that you desire that doesn't still experience fear. And the only difference between you and them is their decision to do it and their willingness to try and fail. And we talk a lot about looking at someone who you refer to as like the elite playing at the highest level, they're on chapter 10 and I'm on chapter 1, and it must be nice for them and it looks so easy, but I'm not that person. I'm not like them. It's like you have no idea what transpired between chapter 1 and chapter 10. So
Yeah.
if you hang around those people and pick their brain and be curious about how they got to where they are, you might just get to that level by your chapter 4. You can get there faster. There's something about getting in the room and spending time with people that are doing things even before you know how. It sparks the interest in you, and the curiosity leads to more learning, and the learning leads to action, and then you get results much faster than you ever dreamed possible.
It's been absolutely incredible. Like the chance to, oh, hey, you can do that. You're my friend. I remember sitting at another one of the Go Buttons events in Cancun. I was sitting next to Jody Peters. She's a developer. And I was thinking, like, I don't develop. I am a buy and fix up, make nice, and then write it out for the long term, right? Like, that is my play. I don't know jack about development. I was sitting next to her. I'm like, yeah, it would be really nice to see a community go up in this area because it's right next to this field. And there's a ton of really good school systems. She's like, well, you just buy the land and then you just put something up. I'm like that's just two things, right? Like, so to a person who does it, you realize it's just this simple, straightforward checklist. And I never would have had that brain opening experience about that thing and otherwise if I wouldn't have been next to someone for whom that difficult thing for me was easy.
Yeah, I love that. You've said so many amazing nuggets here about just everything that resonates in my heart and soul. And yet it's interesting because we can sit here and have this conversation, and I can admit that I still feel imposter syndrome.
Girl, same, 100%. I was live on WGN in studio, and the amount of breathing techniques I had to employ to not throw up on the air was bonkers, right? But I feel like that's a new muscle. Now I've done it, and I realize I can do it without dying. So it's going to be easier next time, right? I think that is anything you try new, you're going to feel like you have no friggin' clue what you're doing. And then you're going to feel better the next time. I also, about imposter syndrome, while we're on it, I feel like the more I admit where I am an imposter, it diffuses the situation. Like, I'm a multifamily investor. That is something I will wear the expert tag on. Done it a bunch of times, feel really strongly about my opinion on that. I'm brand new to buying a car wash though, right? And it's just because it's both commercial real estate doesn't mean I know what the frick I'm doing in car washes. So with the people that I'm buying the car wash from, with the attorney that I hired and the inspection guy, I get to say, hey, listen, yes, I'm a commercial real estate investor, but this is new to me. So work with me like I'm a newbie on this. And then not only have I diffused the imposter syndrome need to show up like she knows what she's doing, now I get better information because they're not talking over my head in a way that I need to follow up with 34 questions. So you feel like an imposter, name it, and that diffuses it pretty much immediately.
Love that so much. Well, I want to honor your time here, Mandy. I want to invite anyone who's listening, who's curious about GoBundance, women, or from the men for that matter, because there's a men's group as well. By all means, reach out and be curious. Like Mandy said, be curious. And yeah, you might be afraid and you might feel imposter syndrome, which is exactly how I've felt in the past. But I can tell you that when you hang around these people that represent your future, you start to create a new reality for yourself, even before you know how. And accept the fact that the impossible will always feel impossible until it's done, and that your brain is limiting your ability to dream beyond the realistic. So just know that that's there. It's going to always be there. Your brain's a powerful thing, and it's always going to hold us back. Any last piece of advice, Mandy, or how people can get a hold of you, follow you? Also, if you could explain about that freebie on your website a little more in detail, I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like you're capable, any person listening, you're capable of so much more than you realize. And the more you are next to people doing the thing you want to do, the easier it is to imagine yourself becoming that. Right. So it's proximity is power. The freebie on my website, it's a calculator of how to estimate basically what you need to achieve in terms of cash flow to have different levels of financial freedom. It'll explain everything. There's a couple videos in it. MandyMcAllister.com. And you'll see a pop up and you'll be able to put in your email address. We'll send it right to you. MandyMcAllister.com. And then if you're interested in GoBundance, you can either go to my website and be linked through. But GoBundance Women, we're a group of women who choose to lead epic lives. We're successful. We're heart-centered. We realize that, yes, financial freedom matters, but it's not the only thing that matters. And when you focus on the other stuff, then the money just comes even faster and in ways you can never imagine, because you are a fully developed human. Living my legacy for my kids is what matters most to me, and showing them that I can chase my dreams, because kids are more likely to do what you show them than what you tell them, right? So I'm trying to lead by example in that way. So GoBundanceWomen.com or MandyMcAllister.com.
Well, thank you, Mandy. As always, an explosion of joy, energy, inspiration. I love you so much. Thank you for being here today.
Love you too, friend. Thank you.
And for all my friends out there listening, as always, I love and appreciate you. If you are enjoying the content you're consuming here, please make sure to leave that 5-star review so we can continue to help this content get found and help others on their journey towards building a life you don't need a vacation from. Make it an awesome day, and I'll see you next time.